What do they call it in America? The bribery and corruption to buy an election. What's the word? I mean, it's
democracy.
No, not democracy, man. Morning. How are you, boys?
Morning. Good, very good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Been a busy week. Been a bit of a blur. So we're going to kick it off this morning with an update on the news, what's happening out there, obviously the more serious stuff, and hopefully we'll finish it off with the not so serious stuff, which could land up being serious. Let's see what happens.
Right, so the latest developments on Ethereum staking and the switch to the merge. The rally merge for 6th to the 12th of August, the last test run before Ethereum transitions to proof of stake. Obviously, that's what we want to be seeing. Doesn't seem to be any kind of hiccups happening. We've had enough kind of test runs now and multiple different test nets. And naturally, market seems to be responding quite well to that. So that's all good. Is there still any concerns from either of you about something happening? And we'll get into ETH Classic later, but is there any concerns from anyone that shit hits the fan on the merge and the full industry just collapses? No one can access their money.
Now, wouldn't that be an absolute fitting way to finish this story? ETH merge completely fluffs up, billions of dollars get lost in Ethereum, and the whole of crypto comes crashing down. What a way to
Dan, I'm a little bit concerned. I'm a little bit concerned that you are turning into a perma-bear, and we need to. I mean, I thought I was being bearish, but you taking the cake here. I don't think so. I think the guys have got this thing under wraps. I think they know exactly what it is that they're doing, and I think that's one of the reasons why there've been the delays. They know the significance of this thing. They're not fools, and I think we're going to see a seamless, good ride in terms of how this thing is going to switch over, and it's going to be very interesting to see how the market responds past what we're seeing at the moment. And also, Vitalik obviously came out and said that the merge has not been priced in on all levels, not only financial, but also psychological and in terms of narrative. And I think that I'm going to go with that one, despite being very bearish, not as much as Dan over the last few weeks. I'm going to go with very much a bullish perspective on the ecosystem itself. I mean, the market's ultimately going to be dictated by all the factors that it is being dictated by. But I think this is a solid railway track. I don't think this is going anywhere.
I think this is the first time I've ever heard him speak about price, which is funny. Maybe I tweeted out earlier the other day that he wants a new Lambo. That Arthur Hayes thing, fire up the liquidator. I need a new Lambo. But
the guy's a multi-billionaire. He doesn't need a new Lambo. He probably needs a new pair of socks or sneakers. But that's about as far as Vitalik's desires go, from what I can tell. Guy's not really
he needs a new, fresh, white, crisp T-shirt, because that is the T-shirt of developers. Fresh, white, and crisp.
I promise you, he probably has like a container full of fresh, white, crisp T-shirts.
No. He's a nerd. He might have this big, beautiful, 15-story mansion, but in reality, he has a basement. And in that basement is the most amazing, technologically powered computer, laptop, and drive. His wardrobe is about the size as mine. I get 6 of the same T-shirts in there. Got some pants books in there. That's it. No way Vitalik has any more than that. Bollocks. Sorry.
I don't know. You're probably right. He seems like quite a content individual. I don't know. I mean, I'm by no means a Vitalik fanboy, but he just seems like he's quite happy with what he has, and he doesn't seem like he wants too much. I don't know. That's the vibe I get from him.
He's a nerd.
Yeah.
He's creating technology to change the world because he cares. And he's also pumping his shitcoin bags, which will explain
Absolutely.
He's like us. So his portfolio went from what? Almost $4,000 a coin all the way down to 1,000. That's a 75% drop in his portfolio. He's definitely pumping his shitcoins. 100%.
I'm all for it. Like, obviously, he doesn't want a new Lambo. He seems to be completely against any of that. He was calling Suzu out past month for buying a 50 million yacht that he can't actually afford. So, no, he probably just wants to spend it more on like unicorn t-shirts and all that sort of shit. But it's just interesting to see him speak about price. Obviously, this was at was this at FCC?
Yeah.
Maybe everyone's buying. Maybe everyone's buying ETH Classic because they thought Vitalik was speaking at like ETC, and there's like people are a little bit dyslexic and they can't like define the difference between ETC and ETC. Maybe that's what's happening. Like we've seen the sell-off in USDT after UST collapsed. Maybe there's something.
That's a wild theory, but based on what I've seen in this space over the years, you probably bang on.
Yeah, and I also heard like rumors that ETCC is going to be like the new stable coin of ETH.
Imagine the horror amongst Ethereum hardcores. Ethereum Max is going to be after you, Dan. So I mean, obviously, let's swiftly go on to the next thing, and that is that, if you look at what Ethereum Classic has done, in the last week or so, it's just completely dominated everything. It's outperforming everything, isn't it? I think Ethereum Classic is the king right now, surely.
That is a shitcoin chart. That is like insider play, speculation. Beautiful, isn't it?
But the thing is it insider play? The narrative around this thing right now is that, we've got all these miners. There's all this graphic power that's sitting on shelves around the world. Billions of dollars worth of hardware. How do we now assign billions of dollars worth of hardware? Well, let's create value in something that we can assign our billions of dollars worth of hardware. And let's just create something out of nothing, and essentially that's the feeling or the vibe that I'm getting from this thing. Ant Pool is huge. It's a huge network, and now they want to start mining Ethereum Classic. And if you wondered why the price of Ethereum Classic is doing what it's doing, here it is. This is the reason.
And what's the actual use case for Ethereum Classic?
I don't think it's relevant, and I have no idea.
It's obviously pre DAO hard fork OG. You could say it's like the least tampered of the two, obviously, because the Ethereum that we know and love now was the hard fork after the whole DAO fiasco and all that stuff back in the day. But everyone thought that Ethereum Classic, like here's people who were around that ecosystem and around that community at the time. They were like, yeah, well, we're gonna go with Ethereum Classic. It's what blockchain's all about. It's like immutable and shouldn't be changed just because this DAO hacker was managing to like siphon off a shitload of ETH. But everyone quickly realized when Vitalik and everyone else jumped ship as well. So I don't know. I think Barry Shilbert's got a little bit of his people doing a lot of groundwork for him, pumping his ETH Classic bags, because that was one of the funds at the Grayscale Trust, which is kind of batshit crazy to me. But
so now all we need now is for Zcash to find a narrative, and then the balance will be restored in the force that is cryptocurrency.
Yeah, don't Grayscale own like 5% of all of Zcash?
As much as that. I mean, that's huge. That is huge.
Yeah,
what's the value of that? What is the value of 5% of Zcash at the moment?
About
What is the market cap?
About $45 or something.
No, but what's the market cap? 68. So it's pretty big. I mean, it's not small. It's
or maybe it was 5% of the outstanding supply, but that's still hedge. I know, circulating, yeah. All right, so like 5% of 9. Okay, yeah, they can do what they want. It just feels like they've came in like these traditional folks and just thought, ooh, nice shiny, and kind of drunk the Kool-Aid from like the first 2017, 2018 big narrative, and then just haven't really exposed themselves. Not that they could through regulation, but haven't really exposed themselves to too much further down the kind of risk curve. I know they've got a few other assets on their books, but I don't fucking know. I just want their ETF to be approved. More interestingly, the Uniswap fee switch. And whoever wrote this headline, yeah, no shit. Uniswap proposed fee switch would cut into liquidity providers' payouts. Well, yeah, that's how it works. So current setup, 0.3% of any transaction is distributed proportionally to liquidity providers. So if you own 90% of the pool, you get 90% of that 0.3%, and that's how it works. Everyone knows unis are currently a valueless governance token. And there is kind of reasons for that. They're under quite heavy regulatory scrutiny based on their proximity in the world, based out in I don't know if it's New York or somewhere in the US anyway. But when that got proposed, the market seems to have liked that. And we looked just before we jumped on at the proposal itself. So activate. So it's only for USDC and USDT. So obviously that dramatically cuts. It's obviously not as beneficial to. I mean, if it was all liquidity pools, then that might be a little bit interesting.
Why would they target specifically those pools? Is that just because there's so much of those around? So it's a bit of a daft question, but I'm genuinely interested as to why they chose those pairs.
Probably because USDC and Circle are in bed with the Fed, so they can turn a profit off the back of it.
So that's actually a hot topic news. I mean, that's a hot topic right now. I mean, that could go down as probably the highlight of this video, is that USDT and USDC are in with the Fed. I mean, is that something that we can kind of like pass on to the Sun magazine? Do you think they'd pay for that?
Sun definitely would. They'll advertise with Katie Price. Oof.
You see, it's amazing. Like you mentioned Sun magazine or Sun newspaper, and Dan's in immediately. Like he's
mate. The first thing I did when I got off
it's kind of like, there we go. On the toilet
first thing
in the morning.
When I got off the plane back to the UK, I went straight to Smith's, right? WH Smith's. I've not seen that for like 6 years. I got the Sun like that, and I was waiting for my mum to come pick me up. I thought, look at that. Page 3, ladies and gentlemen.
I can no longer speak to you for buying the Sun.
Yeah, I think this very, very pleasant relationship is now over.
You're starting to learn like the real me.
Here we go. And
let's have a look at this then. So 1.72 billion in the last 24 hours on Uniswap, and I think we worked it out. If it was every pool, it'd be 860 grand distributed to token stakers, but obviously they're in for ETHUSDC and USDT, USDT. So if we try to have a look at pools. So to be honest, like 885 million of that 1.72 billion. So near enough half. My maths is right. That is coming from ETHUSDC. And what was the other one? USDT, USDC. And then you've got 181 million, which is coming from USDC, USDT, which is strange because ideally, if you had like the first understanding of how Curve worked, you'd go to Curve and use Curve and get low slippage and all that jazz. But so 181 million plus you got like 1.06 billion. So it's still gonna be quite hefty. It's more than half, around 60%. So that 860 grand, you're probably looking at what, 500 grand a day distributed to holders. That's pretty.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
So they don't even need to go further. No. So with those pools, right? What would happen from that proposal is each time USDC and ETH are traded, whatever the fee. Right, so if this is a 0.05% pool, then that's obviously going to be drastically reduced. But I thought that Uniswap fees were.
What percentage were you doing the 800K on?
0.3. So that's obviously they obviously have variable rates.
Yeah.
So it's not as big of a deal as what the chart is showing, in my opinion. But does that then open the door to proposals for further exotic pools? I don't see why they'd restrict it to kind of low fee, high volume pools. It just doesn't really make sense. A lot of sense. If you're going to do it for 2 pools, might as well just go ahead and fucking light the rest of the industry on fire and turn the fee switch on, in my opinion.
Well, you say that. Uniswap is pretty much the only ticker you've got there that is down hefty. Look at that. Almost 4%.
Because it doesn't do fucking anything. It literally doesn't do anything. It's just, I suppose you can people should start looking at things as, if people weren't so kind of like so bullish on governance and like that could just got shoved down people's throats over the past cycle. It's like, governance is just something you put up to appease regulators, in my opinion, particularly when you've got such a tight distribution of tokens, particularly if there's been a large pre-sale and stuff like that. So it's just all a show. It's all a song and dance in its current form, and it needs a complete overhaul, in my opinion. But the token just does fuck all. So but you could also say like, well, that would mean that the whole growth stock industry is completely useless because you're holding stock that's not holding interest-bearing assets or anything along those lines. They're not exactly paying out dividends or anything like that, but everyone wants everything all at once in this space, don't they? So
Agreed.
I sold my Uni airdrop just for the record.
Do you guys think that there is a, so every cycle has its beginning and its end, and within that, you obviously have your successes and you have your disasters. And with crypto, it's very much defined by the disasters. There's very little, like you don't recall 2017, 2018 with fond memory. You kind of recall it around ICOs and, kind of all the scamming that went on in that. And I think, the end story for this last cycle for me would be the magnitude of, like you said, like all this window dressing and just kind of like the transference of the ICO into governance tokens and all these valueless, like very much, the shelf life is going to be 6 months or 3 months or 2 months because it isn't sustainable. Do you believe that is the main lesson that will be taken out of this cycle so that we don't get a repeat of it? So, the elimination of this whole Ponzonomics model to the extent that people no longer become tolerant of it. So it's kind of like, obviously it'll always be there, but it won't be the overriding narrative in the next cycle that we see. And what do you think that next cycle will be, if that is the case?
Yeah, I think you can kind of see that already happen, because if you think back to like early DeFi summer days where there was just like a load of ridiculous Uni and Sushi Swap forks popping up, and that whole model is near enough gone now. Even if you look at the likes of your PancakeSwap and your Trader Joe's, they've completely iterated on what it means to be an AMM on chain. So that kind of, and that whole idea, and that they're starting to see, you're you're starting to see projects develop on top of that, and they're going to have to adapt to actually survive. So I think that adaptation lends itself well to kind of innovation and finding out new ways to go and do things. And obviously, when the market's down, people begin to build new shit and cool shit. They've seen you're not going to go and build the same thing in a bear market that didn't work, even in a fucking bull market. So it's like, this didn't work. What can we do better? Now we've got the time to go and build it better. And then those are the kind of gems that you need to just really keep an eye out for in the market, because if you're picking them up like sub 50 million market cap and they go on to be a complete multi-billion-dollar project, that can happen. It's just another reason, we've said it many times, you keep your finger on the pulse, even if it's not at 100% that you would do in the bull market. But I think shit that didn't even work towards the end of the bull market will just completely be eradicated, and then there'll just be forks on the new innovative shit that works, and then that won't work for a reason, and then we'll innovate some more, and then there'll be forks of that stuff, and then it'll just continue, in my opinion.
Dan?
I'd agree. Yeah, I'd agree. So we'll see all the cool shit being built now, and then all that cool shit will get forked, and then it will get really forked, and then it'll get forked up, and then the cycle happens again.
The thing is, though, that how do you take, and I totally agree with you, because I think there will be, those innovative projects that ultimately do solve X, Y, and Z solutions. But generally speaking, I think that those projects that will have the sustainability and the ability to obviously satisfy their users from a monetary perspective, but also from a user experience perspective, aren't going to be simple forks. It won't be a copy and paste. I mean, you look at what somebody like Change Finance have done, what Hero Network, Hero Labs are doing at the moment. These guys have spent literally like over a year just putting like infrastructure in place in order to deliver a well-known service, namely, whether it's liquidity provision across chains, whether it's trading in options and derivatives. We know how those things work. It's not like they're inventing something new. All they're doing is building the infrastructure, but it's taking them a really long time to do it. Do you think something like Hero gets copy and pasted? I don't think so. I think that's like, maybe that's where it all ends for the forking scenario, and that's where we get the real projects coming in that will establish themselves at the core of this whole industry. And then hopefully, I hope that this is what happens, is that becomes the foundation for, the space to innovate around products that, really take it to the next level in terms of whether it's Web3 and, payment between you and I, or whether it's transactional based or whether it's trading based. As opposed to, the weeds in the system, and the Ponzi's.
Isn't something like Hero too complex and complicated to just simply copy and paste? Whereas like Uniswap forks were coming out a lot quicker, so that was a lot easier to copy and paste.
That's my point.
100%. And there's certain components of Hero that I think the liquidation engine's not open source. There's like, and you've got to think, like, if a project like that spins up and it does immediately well, they've got an immediate moat around them, and like the stickiness of it and how many people come onto the platform, the community. Like, just because you're going to do a copy past the fork, you can't exactly do that with the community either. So projects that you see, like the likes of GMX and but they're a really good example, actually. They've got a great product. No one's tried to go and kind of emulate their GMX GLP strategy. There's like projects that take inspiration from it. I mean, Hero have looked at the escrowed GMX and the escrowed Hero kind of implementation for their tokenomic design for like a longevity of the project. But no one can go and just do the same thing as what GMX are doing, because one, they've got this really organic community participation that has completely led the marketing campaign around that without having to be completely overbearing. Like, you don't see people being spinning up community built podcasts or community built tools for that are actually like out in the wild. You don't see like that happening from like the DYDX camp. Not to say that DYDX don't have like a shit ton of volume, because they do. They're the market leader. They're probably one of the most profitable projects in the space. But there's things that you can fork and there's things that you can't. And like the community aspect of it is one of them.
Grant, I think what you've just laid out now is exactly, in my opinion, part of the blueprint that defines the future of the space, in that it's about innovation. It's about creating sustainability within the community and the users. So you don't even have to be a part of the community. Like this whole idea, I've got to be a part of the community in order to benefit from this thing, through the insider information or through like the new stuff that's coming out. Whereas something like GMX, while we're providing a service, people can, they can long and short, and they can do all this stuff on our platform, and the people that are staking on it are earning money from our fees. And you don't really need anything beyond that, because what you're doing is that you're creating a partnership between your users and the protocol, and everyone's benefiting from that. And that's the sustainability that people are going to start looking for in the space, in my opinion. And we need more of it. And that's why I think these projects, that take their time, that kind of just grind away, create solid foundation, will always organically land up in the situation, I believe. Well, not always. A little bit of luck is obviously required. But I think if you do those fundamentals correctly, you just increase your chance of being in a situation where you can reap the benefits, just like GMX are. And you're right, they are the perfect example of, like, if you want to make it in the space right now, just try and emulate what it is that they've done from a functional perspective. I mean, obviously your technology needs to be your own, and you need to approach your own technology in the way that you would, but how did they approach the market? And they've just been very successful, and they've delivered, and that's what needs to happen in this space now. Yeah.
Speaking of kind of biding your time and releasing everything correctly, so I think it's not a kind of it's not a shock to kind of see this news come out with Synapse protocol up 50%. Obviously, I use it near enough every other day. I think probably every weekday, maybe, just for bridging. But they've announced that the L1, the Synapse Chain, is coming. I think everyone's kind of knew that for a while now, but that's been up 50% yesterday off the news. Problem is that news has kind of been in the on the grapevine for a long time now. It's just how they're going to execute on that. So the key takeaways that were posted were: Synapse provide a fast, low bridging solution across virtually any network. Synapse plans to launch its own proof-of-stake network that will enable creation of multi-chain DEXs, lending platforms, and derivatives. The SYN token offers exposure to the upside of a successful and highly utilized network. So effectively, there are issues with different bridges that are in the space, but what SYN and Synapse are kind of doing here is they're increasing the composability across chains. Stargate and Layer Zero are kind of doing that now. You're starting to see projects spin up where you can deposit on one chain, and then in effectively one transaction you can borrow on another, or all that kind of shit. So I said this months and months and months ago, but the whole cross-chain narrative thing and how protocols can interact with other protocols, no matter what chain we're on. I do believe we'll get to a time in the future where we just have absolutely no understanding of what chain we're on at any given time, and we shouldn't necessarily need to. But this is kind of looking at what Stargate have done, what Layer Zero have done. Not to say that they need to kind of innovate and keep up with their competitors, so they need to, without kind of fading into the ether. So I'd be interested to see what happens. Anyway, I think it's good for the project in the long run. What's next? Right, I kind of take personal offense to this, and I'm pretty sure Dan does as well. EU 100. Problems, lack of crypto experts worries the European Union.
So what we were actually discussing before we came on air was, Jedi said that he's like, Dan, you can go talk to him. It's like, yeah, I can, but then Brexit happened, so I'm technically not European now, so I can't do shit here. And when you actually read this article, which I clearly didn't, like the biggest thing I took away from it was the EU and the EU regulators aren't on crypto Twitter listening to all the shit posting, because if they had one employee who was on crypto Twitter all day long, they would fully understand what is going on in the ecosystem right now, because that is where you get your alpha from. Then they could understand how to actually regulate the crypto market. And how do you do that? You don't. And if you were to try to, you do it through Twitter and the Lightning Network. As we said on the previous podcast, this is how these things connect.
You know, you make joke of it, but there is so much truth in what it is that you just said. You know, it's kind of like, it really is a market that's driven by a meme culture and by fleeting opinion. You know, it's just crazy. Like, and all it does is it accelerates exactly what's going on in traditional markets. You know, in traditional markets, the guys go to lunch and they sit around and have expensive lunches, and they do the same thing. It just takes longer. Whereas in crypto, because we have this medium and because we're so plugged into this meme culture, it all happens at an accelerated rate of probably 100x. And there's a reason why there's 100x leverage in crypto, because it all comes back to that, doesn't it? It's kind of like...
when you think about it, it's mental. Like, in the real world, if your stocks, right, if they went up by 2x, that's huge. In crypto, if you 2x, you may as well just like not even bother taking it out. Like, a 2x is a failure. You 2x, but then if you 2x your portfolio every single day for 7 days, that's like 1,000 into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, 8 into 16, 16 into 32. Now we're getting into big numbers. It's mental. Absolutely mental.
This is interesting. So the problem itself would not be the lack of skilled labor, but rather competing against high salaries offered by private companies in the sector. Yeah, well, no shit. Like, who the fuck wants to go and work as like a little snitch for the EU, sat there being like a little Randall from Recess, and whilst they can go make some big bucks and work for some companies and projects that are trying to actually do some cool shit. No one wants to work for like a big suited up, like authoritative body in crypto. It's the complete antithesis of what it all stands for. So no wonder they're fucking struggling to hire. Like, it just drives me insane. Viva la Brexit.
But the thing is, wasn't there another report that was released? I actually saw it in the news as well. I just remembered now, and apologies for not bringing it to the attention, but there was a report that was written, I'm not sure whether it was the European Union, but they actually quoted Kobe amongst one of the crypto Twitter influencers in this official government document. It's worth finding. Let me just see if I can find it. But it really is. Just check if you can see regulation. Just go on Twitter, regulatory document Kobe. I mean, I'm sure something will come up.
So we've basically gone from using Google as a method of search to Twitter. But the good thing is about Kobe, he's actually got a decent Twitter handle. Because could you imagine Big Hot Mama 69 being the thing that gets linked into an actual governmental proposal based on some logic that she put on Twitter?
Well, I don't know. I think that they're just a complete pack of idiots, in my opinion. They obviously completely out of the depth. They haven't done anything. So it's just like, well, we'll just look to kind of ban it. It's kind of the way they go. And who's that woman who's like at the top, and she's a complete perma bear. She's worse than used to put together.
Oh Christ. That'd be a depressing coffee in the morning, wouldn't
You're talking about Elizabeth Warren?
In the EU? No.
In the EU.
She's a crank as well.
Right.
Right. We've said this multiple times, but whoever is doing business development at Polygon, he should be on the highest paid salary on the planet. They just keep bringing in these ridiculously like normie friendly partnerships that can get some nice big headlines. It's just like, this is the kind of shit that goes through your Bloomberg terminal and people are like, ooh, yeah, this is good. This is good. If you're taking like your first insight or going onto Reddit for your information as opposed to Twitter, which you shouldn't do, by the way, if anyone's listening, because you just shouldn't. That's kind of like your first 6 months into crypto and you see this and you're like, oh, that's juicy. I'm gonna remortgage the house and buy Polygon, which I don't think.
I was about to say, could you imagine driving that Merc? You know, like all these TVs with this little high def screen on it. Could you imagine, like, you connect your phone up? I don't know what it is on Polygon, but could you imagine if you're there, like, shitcoining on Uniswap in your Mercedes? Like, that is genius. You're there, like, if you're in England, you're there on the M25. You're stuck in traffic for 4 hours. You're just shitcoining on this little screen in your Mercedes. Christ.
Yeah, the problem is like the network's so shit. It's really difficult to use. So.
But the business development team are fantastic, ladies and gentlemen.
That's all. That's all.
Don't
that's
worry
all
about
that
the
matters.
network. That will come later.
If Polygon are listening and they want to sponsor this or the newsletter, then yeah.
Because we are Polygon. We are Polygon bulls right here.
Yeah, the network's brilliant. It works every time I've used it.
You've never been a fan, have you? I haven't either. I remember there were those folks that pitched up there and decided to go get involved and just gave it up because I really didn't enjoy using the network. I mean, I don't know if anything's changed, but it was pretty damn awful back then.
I think I forgot about Polygon for months, and then I went back over there because I was buying Raider, this like NFT project. This was like months and months ago, so don't go buy that shit. And I clicked on the wallet, and there was still like a stuck pending transaction from God knows how long I haven't used it for, and I was just like, this is obviously why I left.
Yeah.
It was just like stuck in the MetaMask. I think I tried to push it through with like ridiculously high gas, and it just wasn't working. But you know, maybe they'll sort it out. Maybe they won't.
But this is coming back to what it is that I was saying earlier on around like good stuff. Good tech takes time to build. You know, if something takes time to build, then you know with a fair amount of certainty that the end result's going to land up being worthy. Obviously, that's not always the case, but I mean, you look at something like Radix, for example. Radix has been a project that has been in the making for 10 years. The network is a year old now. Yesterday was actually its first year birthday, by the way. So, but it took 9 years of developing a network that is Radix, and I believe that Radix potentially has the makings of something that could solve the scalability problem within crypto, and the seriousness that these guys are taking on the task. I think they're probably more serious than anybody out there. And no, I'm not being paid to say this. This is my absolute honest perspective on what it is that I'm seeing out there. I mean, these guys are awesome.
You reminded me that they had like a small little hackathon to build shit, and third place was a lending protocol for degens masquerading as credit-worthy borrowers, and the guy who created it his handle was post-nut clarity.
There we go. I'm changing my name to pre-nut trans. I'm going to change my name to pre-nut transparency.
Post-nut clarity. That's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
Where'd that come up? Where did you think of that, dude? That's so random.
This is quite recent. This is from 2 days ago. I don't know. I just have like these fucking all this shit flying around.
You're a freaking autist lunatic, is what you are, sir.
But that gamer tag is definitely what his first ever email address was when he was like 12 years old, and he's just kept that same tag throughout his whole life.
It's amazing how, Dan, you always give us these insights into your reality, sir. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you and your honesty.
Mate, I've been balls deep in the interwebs for a long time, for a very long time.
But hold on a second. You brought up a topic that we wanted to discuss, which is relevant in the space at the moment, is that you can get married and you can get divorced in the metaverse. I mean, this is a news topic, ladies and gentlemen.
And you know what? You don't even ever have to actually see her. Now, when I was about 13 or 14, I was deep into RuneScape, right? And I had a RuneScape girlfriend. I'm going to be completely transparent, and she looked great, an absolute bomb. She used to have this like rune trim armor. It was rune trim gold. So she had this rune armor, a little gold trim. She's beautiful. Did I see her face? Of course I didn't. And when she took her helmet off, I'm like, darling, please don't. This is RuneScape. It is a pixelated game. I want you looking your finest. So
it was probably a 50-year-old man from the opposite side of the world, completely.
Okay. now I'm putting it dark. Like I did. So TeamSpeak and Ventrilo was a thing back in the day before this, like Zoom and StreamYard stuff.
TeamSpeak still is. People still use TeamSpeak, by the way. It's still very popular. Yeah.
If people use
100%.
IRC, then I'm impressed. But I feel like IRC got beasted up by Discord.
IRC was very, very good back in the day. I must confess, I used it extensively.
Yeah, so did I. But like, I've completely lost my train of thought. What's good? Oh yeah, on TeamSpeak. So like, she definitely wasn't a 50-year-old bloke. Like, she could have been that a female, but Christ, she had a good American accent. Never saw her, but this just brings back to my point. We could have got married in RuneScape, a nice little wedding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, when it all went to shit, we could have gone back to our roots in Lumbridge, which is where you start if you know RuneScape, and we could have got a divorce.
So, I mean, this is coming back to what it is that we were chatting about. The relevance of GameFi and how GameFi is the envelope. It's what pushes this whole narrative around, what is the metaverse? The metaverse and all of that stuff and all these ideas have all originated in the gaming space. I mean, I attended a Quake 2 wedding 25 years ago. I mean, who would have thought of getting married in a freaking first-person shooter where the guys, there we go, and now it's becoming something that Singapore's second minister of law believes is an integrated platform in order to get married and divorced. I mean, this is reality. This is where we're going. We're stepping into, what gamers used to do for a very long time as part of the real world now. It's quite extraordinary.
These people need to go outside and speak to some real women. Jesus Christ. This is not going to take off because everyone on crypto Twitter and things like that, they're not going to be able to have a girlfriend or a wife. That's just not possible.
They do, but you just never see them. It's brilliant.
Yeah, because it's the same guy who's behind your girlfriend's account on all these kind of. That guy upgraded now and is like the guy running the Irene account. He had his globe. Yeah,
that's why in World of Warcraft they made blood elf females with slash dance to be hyper sexy. That's what that was. And then, like, could you imagine that? And then could you imagine like going on your honeymoon and going slaying the Lich King? Christ Almighty, that'd be great.
Right, this is great. So,
our favorite topic, ladies and gentlemen, enter our favorite topic of discussion. Nancy Pelosi. Take it away, Grant.
So, just in from Watcher Guru, House Democrats plan to propose a ban on stock trading for lawmakers, their spouses, and senior staff in August 22. That will not pass. I'll just put that out there now. That's no fucking way that's going to pass. Let's see if there's any. Yeah.
Who put that up? Someone needs to give that DeFi Moon needs an award for putting that up.
Yeah.
So why won't it pass? Well, for the record, for newsworthiness, why will it not pass?
Because they're making too much money.
Yeah.
Is it that will not pass? That's like saying we're going to take away, like we spoke about. We're going
to take away the bribery and corruption around buying an election. Essentially, that's what that's saying. Same thing. What do they call it in America? The bribery and corruption to buy an election. What's the word? I mean, it's
democracy.
No, not democracy, man.
No, it just means this. If this passed, then the Pelosi's.
It's called lobbying, guys. Lobbying. It's like passing a bill to prevent people from lobbying. That's what it is.
Basically, this is just a clickbait from Watcher Guru, who I actually quite like.
No, Watcher Guru is a great account.
Is it actually? Is it not just like trying to ban people that are within the house from trading? Because Nancy Pelosi's been fucking pumping, dumping everything over the past however long, her full career. I mean, she's made her money now. She's just sat on the sideline. Maybe she'll come into crypto, like we said last week, Dan.
But she's okay. So hang on. There's actually there's something behind the story, and that is that she's apparently, isn't she resigning, or was that like a spoof post? Isn't she resigning and joining some kind of lawmaking division? Probably isn't. It was probably like I got clickbaited on that one. I'm pretty sure. Let's check whether my source is correct. No, she's not.
But she's an old girl though. She ain't exactly like a spring chicken. So
she's in her 80s. I think she's like 82 or something. Yeah.
Mate,
you know who she's joining when she finishes? She's joining fucking Polygon.
Does she even know what Polygon is?
Oh, I'm sure she will. Polygon have partnered with Nancy Pelosi to run their trading desk.
Imagine that. That'd be epic.
This
is a good, cool one. Yeah.
This is a great story. Dan, do you know anything? I haven't read this. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So why I found this like so interesting today is not only do they get, it really annoys me, but like it's not soccer, it's football, right? It really is footy. It's footy, it's football. Like you go out your lads, you kick a ball around. But what's interesting is where I live at home, Crawley's like really close to me. So I was like, Crawley Town FC like signs midfielder after an NFT holder vote. But then like what's real funny, if you scroll down, there's a really funny part of it because they start to give you a little bit of insight into who Crawley are. So if you go down a little bit more.
This bit.
Yeah, so Crawley, like I don't know if you know like leagues and divisions in the UK, but they're League Two. League Two, ladies and gentlemen, sounds great, but as you can see, Crawley Town plies its trade to League Two, which, if you didn't know, it's a bit of a shit league because it's the 4th tier. But what is pretty good about this is I think this is going to help Crawley send up into the 1st league because they're now having votes on who they can get into it. Now, what would be super funny is if they actually put a vote to get Cristiano Ronaldo to come to Crawley Town. That would be great. House prices and everything in this area would absolutely skyrocket. But it's just funny how like even these like lower mere, you could say like semi-professional, just come out of the schoolyard kind of teams, and now like using crypto and the and NFT hype to find players. And look at that, Wagme United as well.
Pretty cool. So Wagme United, yeah.
The team were purchased by US crypto and Web3 firm Wagme United for an estimated $20 million. Why don't we just spin up a DAO and buy a National League team or a League Two team and get everyone to chip in?
Can I tell you why, Grant? It's actually all our fault. No, it's all our fault. It's because we're too busy creating content in the crypto space, as opposed to creating shitcoins and steal money from people that we know. That's why.
Nah, fuck that. We'll invest it and this is obviously the sales pitch, wasn't it? I'm just taking the piss. It's like we'll spin up this DAO, Wagme United, we'll buy a football club and we'll get them into the Premier League and then we'll all be billionaires.
But didn't what's his name, Peter McCormack, buy he bought his local club, Bedford Club, the Bedford Football Club, and landed up raising a whole lot of money through the Bitcoin community, and he's now on a mission to compete against Liverpool in the Premier League in the near future.
Did you say he bought Bedford?
He bought Bedford Soccer Club.
Mate,
dude.
I
don't think he's the sole owner. I don't think he's the sole owner, but he did buy a share in it where he gets to make decisions around how this club gets run.
Jesus,
just go Bedford Club.
Mate. They are shit.
10th tier football club. So you
my Crawley
last night in our streams. There we go. He bought it. Look, total of 25 viewers. I mean, total 25 audience. I mean, I love that photograph. It's just kind of like that photograph just says it all. Eh?
Exactly.
Yeah, they picked that well, didn't they?
Yeah, they picked it. I mean, it's the kind of thing Dan would do. Dan would insist. If Dan was running the copy on this, he'd say, "We got to use that photograph."
Hey, bro, that is like punting on a shitcoin that you're gonna hope does 100x. That is what buying Bedford is.
Well, that's what he did. I mean, I think it's pretty cool, really. I mean, it's like I mean, obviously it's highly ambitious, but I actually thought it was a pretty cool thing to do, and it's why not? I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I mean, it just shows what the space can lend itself to. Whether it's buying a football club or using NFTs to raise awareness. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a good story.
Yeah. The conversation will be so funny when he has to sell all his players to SBF when Bitcoin hits like 10K. SBF and FTX just have all the players just doing keep ups around them while they're.
I mean, that's a newsworthy item, isn't it? I mean, it was mentioned in the news this week, and that is how SBF has come along and saved, all these companies, in terms of bailing them out and putting deals on the table. And, is the guy just on a mission to just take over the whole space, or does he genuinely want to help people?
What do you think on this? Do you think he's got good intentions? He's proper through and through a nerd and wants to see crypto survive, or is he just being a greedy little nerd? And
it's a very good question. I'll let Grant answer that question first, and then I'll follow.
So we'll finish on this thread from SBF because this came out. I don't know when this was. Monday. I don't know. Fuck knows. So he's basically saying that Voyager lost its customer assets, but it still has the majority left. Why haven't these been returned to the customers yet? Sad facts from a bankruptcy process. So he goes into this big thread saying there's a lot of people out there that are being a little bit predatory and going in. The amount of assets that are left, they're saying, well, yeah, we'll give you 10% in liquid capital and you can walk away. And the issue is there, then the customers don't necessarily get back what they've lost. So he's saying, well, we'll give you what did they want to give them? Right, so this is the third here. So what's going on with Voyager? Well, a lot of parasites trying to bid at 0.10 on the dollar for the assets, or around 10%. If a customer had $100 on the platform, third party would pay $10 for it and get whatever funds remain, maybe $75. That's what they're expected. They seem to think they've lost 25% of their whole assets, so there'll be $75 left. People are bidding $10 for it. So he's said, we've put a bid in effectively that they
get 100% back.
They get 100% of their assets back. So they'll get the 75. If you had $100 in, their SBF's estimating that you're probably the max you're ever going to get back is $75 if SBF kind of take over this whole shit show. But there's a few things I think about this. It's probably the best of a bad situation, given the kind of lowball offers that are going on there. But two, this is going to be kind of a customer, it's not going to damage it's not going to damage FTX a lot, and it's going to act as a customer acquisition cost in a sense, because how are the customers going to get their assets back? They're going to have to sign in to FTX. They're going to have to go, and what's going to happen if anyone bets and they get a free bet and they win, or if there's money in their account, you're more likely to kind of spin the roulette or put it on another football game or whatever. So the money's already left in the casino if people do this, and then FTX get a shitload of users sign up as well. It's just a customer acquisition cost for FTX. It's not going to damage them dramatically, and Voyager are probably getting the best kind of payout compared to what the other low ball offers are happening. So, I mean, you can look at it multiple ways, but it's like the way I'm looking at it is as long as people get as much money back as physically possible, then I don't really care about the method that it happens. Obviously, you might think it's a little bit more nefarious down the line, but I don't really care. As long as people get as much money back as physically possible for an issue that wasn't their fault, then I couldn't really give a shit, to be honest.
So what do you think around Dan's question? Do you think he's one of the good guys, or do you think he's one of the bad guys?
I think he's probably...
Before you answer that, can I just jump in? Before you answer whether you think he's good or bad, take note that he's living somewhere in the Cayman Islands in a massive, like, 20-bedroom house with 10 coder lads coding everything with a Toyota Corolla parked outside. Does that influence your decision?
I think he's probably like neutral good. And he's obviously doing an awful lot to protect this space when it's in its darkest times. You can kind of say this is acting as like a lender of last resort. It's like a little bit of a George Soros play here, or a kind of like by the blood. No one's got any money left. These guys have been the champion of this market in the last run, so it's obviously going to happen. These guys are like super dialed in. They're probably out trading. There's such a blurred line between FTX and Alameda. It's kind of hard to decipher who anyone's talking about at any one given time. But these guys have done really well, and I think the FTX global domination will just continue. I think it's probably neutral good. Everyone's in this space to make money. I don't give a shit what anyone says, even if it's like a little bit or a lot. It depends on how much you're trying to make. But if you can kind of do good in the process of making that money, then obviously that's the kind of optimal way to do it. There was the Forbes interview where he said if he could trade orange juice futures and that would make him as much money as crypto, he'd do that because he's all about effective altruism and all that kind of shit. But I think the space would it be better off without him? Probably not.
I agree with everything that you said, and I'd like to add that it's business, right? At the end of the day, there's the business element of it, and I think that he's not doing it on his own. I think he's got his backers, and and his team. Whether they're backers or not, we don't know. But he doesn't operate in a silo. It's like he's very much. Obviously, he's the face. Obviously, I would imagine a lot of the ideas and the strategies come solely from him, and I think he is neutral good. I mean, obviously, Alameda's like they've gone out there in the business sense and they've reaped havoc, but that's what business is, right? And there's probably a dozen scenarios where like you'd wish that Alameda wasn't involved. I think like early days AVAX, Joe, I mean, they just completely and utterly dominated that whole space on such a significant level. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of the money they made was probably from that initial influx into AVAX. And it'll be interesting for them to reflect upon that. Like, if we ever had them on the show, hopefully we do. So that's just, by the way, that's one of the goals, is to get SBF on the show. Maybe one day we'll make it in the space and we'll be, he'll be asking us to come on, and one of the questions I'd love to ask him is, so what was your biggest play? And why was it the biggest play? And what was the thinking behind it before the time? I'd love to get insight into that. The same way we got insight into how, like Sam made that deal with Dan and them. It was a handshake. Come on, guys, that was a handshake deal. I see you, I see who you are, I see what you're doing, and you know what, you can take my money because I know you're going to honor the agreement. And I think that says a lot about who he is, and the fact that he's made it publicly he's been very vocal about the fact that he wants to give money away, and he does. He gives a lot of his money away to charities. They put a lot of thinking behind the charities that they give their money away to. Maybe they could give more. You could argue as, an SBF, anti-SBFer, you could say, well, why aren't they giving more? But I think the fact that they do, and the fact that they are mindful of the space, I think he is positive for the space, despite the ruthlessness that comes with this business. I mean, that's just a part of it. You're obviously going to go onto a rugby field to win. You're not going to go onto the rugby field to give the guys a hug and leave it at that, But when you get off the field, it's, who are you? And I think Sam Bankman-Fried is positive for the space. And yeah, like you say, he's stepped in the dark times, and he's made quite a lot of difference to a lot of protocols and projects that probably would not be here if it wasn't for him. That's jobs, that's continuity, that's preserving the space. And I think that's what's needed, especially when you got this much money. It's kind of like you made all this money with this ruthless approach, but then you kind of give it back in the kind approach. It's a strange one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a game at the end of the day. If you think about that, like that word takes a lot of the emotion out of it, and they're just playing it better than everyone else. So,
Cool,
that's
guys. Is that a wrap?
I think that's about it. Yeah. Anything else?
No, on that bombshell. SBF is neutral good.
Neutral good. Do you agree? So there's the answer to your question, sir. I think you got it.
Good.
Yeah.
Just for anyone who's listening, you fuckers there who haven't already liked and subscribed, you can't do that now because YouTube algorithm is quite frankly dog shit. So we need as many people to just click it. It'll take 0.1 second to go and do, and we'd really appreciate if you could do that. But yeah, that's about it. Keep your eyes out on Sunday. There's an episode with GMX, and keep your eyes out for the newsletter, which is in the description. There's been some big winners in that recently. So yeah, go and do that. And that's it from this week. Thanks.